Merry Christmas. I invite you guys to stand and sing with us. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace on earth and mercy mild, God and sinners reconciled. Joyful all ye nations rise, join the triumph of the skies. With angelic hosts proclaim, Christ is born in Bethlehem. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Hail the heaven-born Prince of Peace, hail the Son of Righteousness. Light and life in all he brings, risen with healing in his wings. Mild he lays his glory by, born that we no more may die. Born to raise us from the earth, born to give a second birth. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Gloria in excelsis Deo. In excelsis Deo. Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strains. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Come to Bethlehem and see Christ, whose birth the angels sing. Come adore on bended knee, Christ the Lord, the newborn King. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo.
Well, good evening, everyone. You may be seated. Ooh, there I am. It is so good to have you here at Covenant tonight. My name is Sam, for those who do not know me. I'm one of the pastors here at Covenant, a place where we seek to invite all people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And we are excited every time we get together to be able to tell that grand narrative, that grand story that reshaped the world. And tonight, in the spirit of the telling of that tale over and over again, we are going to listen to some tales straight out of the Appalachian hills that have shaped us. And we are excited about this particular evening of Appalachian storytelling and song. I know there are a lot of guests here, family coming in, others who are visiting, and so let me just sort of clear the air with the space and how you can find your way around the room and this building. First of all, if you need the restrooms at any point in time, you can go straight out those back doors in the back. The restrooms are to your right. You'll find them down the hall there. We also have a couple of rooms set up for your family, so if at any point in time you want to slip out as a special viewing room for your family, that is set up just outside these doors. There's comfortable couches. Some who are regular attenders here were looking for those couches when you came. I know you were. That's where they are. If you want to slip out there, that's fine. But that's where you'll find those. That's a special viewing room. And then we have a nursery set up for those 2 and under if you need to take advantage of that at any point in time. Please do that. Also, one of the things that's really important to us for this evening is Silent Night and Candlelight. So I hope that as you came in, you grabbed a couple of things. One of them looks like this that is in my right hand, and my candle is sitting down there, but you all have candles with you. Hopefully, if you did not get one of those, we'll end the night by singing Silent Night and lighting candles throughout the room. So make sure that you have those and have those accessible for you at the very end. Another part of our rich tradition here at Covenant for Christmas Eve service is our Christmas Eve offering. And it's not a custom in our congregation to pass offering plates, so you won't see that happening at any point in time. But on the back of this bulletin, you'll see Vision Nicaragua, which is the organization that we're committing 100% of our offering to tonight. So anything that comes in, whether it's given via text or online or dropped at the receptacles that can be found at the doors, that will go to Vision Nicaragua. If you feel more comfortable just giving to Vision Nicaragua directly, I encourage you to check them out. Their website is on this form. You can go straight there and you can make a donation to this incredible organization that was set up some 20-some years ago just after Hurricane Mitch. So us here in the mountains of western North Carolina share more in common with Vision Nicaragua than ever as we seek to rebuild from Hurricane Helene, and that's one reason that we are revisiting this organization. Which brings me to the last thing before I introduce our storyteller for the night. As you came up onto our property, you probably noticed what we call our village. This is a space that we have created on the backside of Hurricane Helene, where we are responding to those who were directly displaced by the storm. We currently have 20 families who call this home. And they have established their life here with us and are rebuilding their lives as they get ready to find permanent housing beyond here. We've already rehoused 12 families, and we're excited about the possibilities of getting those other 20 into, and believe it or not, as many months as we are into this recovery, we have a wait list for families to come in, some who are still living in cars, some who are in hotels, and otherwise. And so as soon as we can get some campers opened up or some campers onto site, we can receive them in. So just wanted to give you a little clarity about what you saw when you came in. Enjoy the Christmas festivity out there when you leave. It's a beautiful part of sharing in joy this season, and we believe joy is one of those things that can really heal the hearts. Now, for the reason you all came tonight, I want to introduce our famed storyteller, Connie Reagan Blake. I ran into Connie just a few months ago, actually. Some of you have been following her much, much longer than I have. She has had over 40 years of doing this work. She has spoke this, you'll see this on your bulletin, but I just had to highlight this. She has entertained audiences in 47 of our 50 states, 18 countries, and been on 6 continents. I'm betting I can guess which one she's not been on. That would be a very lonely storytelling experience with a bunch of penguins in front of you. But it is her wisdom and humor and her ability to so creatively and authentically share these stories that has now led her to a space where she's been honored by the Library of Congress as a leading figure in American storytelling history. They get to pull all of her repertoire of work into that library, that prestigious place. Maybe even tonight. I don't know. We'll give it to them if they want it, Connie. You just let them know. But that is going to be housed at the Library of Congress as well. I do want want to make you aware, if you just can't get enough of her storytelling, she will be I wrote it down, January 10th at 7:30. She'll be at in Black Mountain at another show. So you can find out more details. There's a QR code at the check-in desk just out front. You'll see a lot of her merchandise out there. Connie will be out there after the performance this evening and after our service, so I hope you'll make your way out there and say hey to her as well. But without further ado, would you put your hands together and welcome our guest for the evening, Connie Reagan Blake.
Thank you very much. Boy, it's a delight to be here. And what a beautiful space. This is my first time here, and I'm so glad to hear about what all you folks are doing. I appreciate that. You know, people wonder about this job as a storyteller and how you get into that and such. But I find stories from lots of different places, sometimes even from the newspaper. A good while ago, it's been a number of years, I was reading the paper, and there was this little clip about a comedian. He was kind of just getting into acting as well, not very well known. If I say his name today, you will probably recognize it, Adam Sandler. But this was before he was known, and he was relating that he had been in a little pizza parlor up in New Hampshire with his family. It was in the middle of the afternoon, not many people in there. It was a round table, and a teenager was waiting on him. And the teenager walked up and he said, "Man, you look like Adam Sandler." And Adam Sandler looked up and said, "I know." And the teenager said, "So what's your name?" "Adam Sandler." And the teenager went, "Whoa, now that's a coincidence." And I like to think it's no coincidence that we're gathered here tonight, telling stories and listening to stories. It's something we humans have always done. I feel like it's inside our DNA. It's a part of who we are. Now, the first journey I'm going to take us on before I get to the Christmas stories is about a mountain man who had a great influence in my life and really around the world. His name is and was, he's passed, but his name is Ray Hicks. He was a national treasure and known in the storytelling world, honored by President of the United States, and really he influenced my life in so many ways. And what I want to share with you is a few of what I think of as Ray opening the door to amazing grace. Now, these lands, the lands that we're on right now, they were first settled over 1,000 years ago by the ancestors of the Cherokee people. And a long time after that, some people started coming across the ocean from Ireland, England, and Scotland. And along with their trunks and quilts, they also brought their stories. And Ray was of that lineage. Ray was born 1922 in Watauga County, up not too far from Banner Elk, and on land that had been in his family since the 1700s. His daddy, Nathan, and his granddaddy, Benjamin, built the house that Ray was born in and raised in, along with 10 brothers and sisters. It was a hard life, really always trying to get by. They grew most of the food that they needed, but, they didn't have any electricity, no running water. They had a spring house there, and they lived on this precipice that a drought in the summer could mean maybe starving the following winter. It was a hard life. But right alongside those hardships, there was also a lot of joy and a lot of stories, always stories. Now, they grew most of what they needed, But folks back then, as today, but even, in some ways, and in a unique way back then, even though they were pretty self-sufficient, they had to have some money, some cash. Now, they loved to have that for a little treat, maybe a bit of sugar or coffee, or maybe even, maybe a few other treats and such. But what they really needed the cash for was to pay the land taxes, because that meant whether they were going to keep that land in their family or not. So they always needed some money. Now Ray, he quit school so he could work in the fields. And then he found a jewel. He found a job, a regular job that wasn't just for a day or two, that paid cash. It was called lumbering. He'd be working with a lumber company, cutting down trees and such as that. Now, he got the job, but to get there, he needed some kind of transportation, and they couldn't afford a vehicle. But a neighbor friend loaned him a truck. And things were going good, and one evening, Ray was coming back home, and he got close to his home, and the truck stopped. Well, Ray got out. He didn't know what was wrong. He didn't know anything about engines. He opened the hood there and looked in, made sure all the wires were attached and such. The person that owned the truck didn't know anything about the engine either. And Ray, he kind of fiddled around some and put the hood back down, got back in, tried to start it. Didn't work. And Ray walked on home with a heavy heart. He knew if he didn't show up the next day, there'd be a line of men waiting for that job. Times were rough there in the mountains, and people were always looking for work. So Ray, he went to bed that night, and he said a little prayer. He asked for just a little help. And he told me much later that he woke up in the middle of the night, and there, on the ceiling of his bedroom, was the inner workings of a combustion engine. He could see where the gas was coming into the carburetor. He could see those pistons. He saw every bit of that engine. He woke up in the morning, he went down, fixed that truck, and he got to work on time. That was a moment of amazing grace. It wasn't long after that that Ray met Rosa Violet Harmon, the love of his life. They were quite a sight to see. Ray was 6 feet 7 inches tall, and Rosa was just barely 5 feet tall. And they had a great love and devotion for each other, always at each other's side. Now, they lived and raised their family in that same house where Ray was born and raised. And eventually they got electricity, but they still had no running water, used an outhouse and such, had a spring house nearby. And even after they got electricity, Rosa still used her wood cook stove. She never did switch to an electric one. And to heat the whole place, they had no fierce winters, it really gets cold up there on that mountain. And to heat the whole place, they had a small wood stove in that front room. Now, Ray and Rosa, they had 5 children, and their Christmases were kind of simple. They used to go out and just cut some pine and put it in a bucket, and then maybe make some paper garlands, maybe a little bit of mistletoe if they could find some, decorate that tree up. And if they had any corn, they'd make some popcorn and string that up sometimes. And Rosa, she was very industrious. She decided she was going to put together what she called Christmas boxes, and she would sell those. She advertised in the Agricultural Review right outside there at Banner Elk. And she and the kids would go out into the woods and cut some pieces of pine, get them some moss, a little bit of galax. Those are those leaves that last really long. Florists use them all the time. Got other kinds of things, a little bit of fern and such. Put all that into a box. And when she got an order, she'd tell the folks that if anyone didn't have enough money and they still wanted things, that if they wanted to send some used clothes. So oftentimes with those orders came clothes for the children, and that really helped get them through the winter. They'd usually send the $5 as well, and often they would send toys and such. Now, one time they said they got some puzzles, and they got this round kind of container. They opened it up, and it was pickup sticks. The children were thrilled. Now, I first met Ray Hicks and his wife Rosa in 1973 at the very first National Storytelling Festival across the mountains over in Jonesboro, Tennessee. That festival is still going on now, 50-something years later. And I met Ray and his wife, and we just connected right away. It was almost like we became family. Their youngest son used to say that I was a sister of the heart. Now, my first cousin, Barbara Freeman, she and I both worked at a library in Chattanooga. And a couple of years after I met Ray, I'd been going up to visit them and such. A couple of years after I met him, Barbara and I decided we were going to quit those library jobs and seek our fortune as full-time storytellers, something that was absolutely unheard of at the time. But we got a little yellow truck, one of those toy trucks. They actually called them that, little tiny Datsun pickup truck. We called it Da Putt, Datsun pickup truck. And we put a little topper on it, and we had a friend put a flora back there, had a couple of yoga mats, and we lived out of that truck for 3 years. Now, anytime we got close to Watauga County and the Hicks, we'd always drop by. Now, you couldn't call. They didn't have a phone or anything. So we'd say a little prayer that Ray and Rosa wouldn't be out collecting galax leaves to sell, or maybe some ginseng and such. And, then we'd go over and visit any chance we got. Well, there was one time, it was spring of the year, and we'd been having trouble with our truck, with our Da Putt. It had a busted head gasket, which is really major, and it cost a lot of money. And we didn't have enough money to get it fixed. And what it means is that your engine heats up. So what we did, we just got in the habit, we'd watch that temperature gauge. And as soon as it started heading towards hot, we'd pull off the side of the road. We kept gallons of water back in the truck there in the topper. We'd pour that water over the engine, sit there for it to cool, and then we'd head on again. It made for some mighty slow traveling sometimes, but we were getting by. Well, we got close to where Ray and Rosa lived, so we decided that we would go by and stop by and see if they weren't there. Well, we pulled in on the dirt road and left our troubles with Da Putt up there on the road and started walking down to the home place there. We hollered out, "Hello!" and Ray hollered back, "Halo!" And Rosa came right up to meet us. And we all did hugs, and as we were walking back down, she was pointing out her pretty flowers. There were lupins already blooming, and she had some dahlias, a lot of dahlias that would be coming up. Rosa seemed to know that having that kind of beauty was just as important as cornbread to keep you satisfied and alive. Well, we got to the porch, and Ray was already sitting there, ready to start telling. He was always telling. It was like breathing to him. And Barbara and I had a system. One of us would sit on the porch with Ray and listen to his stories, and the other would go into the kitchen and catch up with Rosa. And at some point, we would just swap off. And Ray didn't miss a beat. He'd just keep on telling. Well, on this particular day, it was getting late in the afternoon, and I told Rosa we were going to have to go, so we headed out to the porch and announced, Ray, we got to go. And he just kept on telling. And I waited a few minutes, and then I said, Rosa, tell Ray we got to go. And he just kept on telling. And then Barbara and Ray and Rosa and I all got up, and Ray did too, and started following us, still telling, back up the hill there. And we got to the truck, and it was perfect timing. He finished that story right at the moment we reached the truck. And then a most unusual thing happened. Ray said, "Pop the hood." It was the first time I'd ever heard him say ordinary words. Everything had always been a story. I was stunned, and so was Barbara. We kind of both stood there, and then she kind of got it together, and she hopped in the truck and popped the hood and raised that hood and bent the 6 feet 7 inches over that engine. And Rosa and Barbara and I were standing in a line there. And Rosa turned to us and she whispered, "Listen, he's quiet." He was fiddling this way and that and this way and that. And he said, "That's got it." He put the hood down. We gave all of our hugs, said we'd stop by the next time we were close, and headed on our way. Now, when you first leave the Hicks place, most of it is downhill. And then as soon as it started uphill, it was our habit to look at that temperature gauge. It never did go to hot again. We put another 50,000 miles on that truck and never did have to get it fixed. We had a moment of Ray's amazing grace. Now, in 2001, Ray took real sick. He was diagnosed with advanced cancer, and the hospice folks said he could stay at home if hospice came in. They had to have a telephone, so Ray didn't want one of those newfangled things, but he agreed to it, and we had it put in. And he became very close with all the hospice people. They really stepped right into the rhythm of his life. And then 3 months went by, and 6 months, and a year, and 2 years, and 3 years, and Ray was still with us. But Rosa called me one day and said that he's in the hospital there in Boone, and the nurses hadn't been able to rouse him that morning. Family and some friends were gathered there, and Ray's breathing had gone down only 7 or 8 breaths a minute. His temperature was way down too, and everyone was kind of watching, seeing if maybe that was going to be his last breath. And there was a little tap on the door, and Tom Dennett came in. He was a hospice nurse, and he had spent the last years with Ray. Often they'd play harmonica together. He and Ray had a really close friendship. And he came in and he walked over to Ray, and he brushed his cheek. That's one of the last places to lose any feeling, and nothing. And Tom bent down and whispered his name in his ear. Nothing. Took his finger and gently went across his eyelashes. Nothing. Tom turned to the other folks in the room, and he said, "Well, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to try." And he started in playing on that harmonica, Amazing Grace. And everyone thought he was playing Ray right out of this world. Ray had a different idea. He flung open his eyes, flung his arms up, and he said, "That's spirit." And we had him for 3 more months. And that is Ray's Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. No, I don't need it. We've known as days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. I wanted to show you a few pictures of Ray. I'll have these out front afterwards, so I know you can't all see him, but that's him sitting on his front porch there. And that's a picture of Ray and Rosa. And that's me on the side, and that's our truck, DePutt. So you can take a closer look at that if you want to. There's a picture of Rosa and Ray there. And maybe one more here. Ray was, there he is in front of his Hicks home place. And Ray was invited after that first festival in 1973. Ray was invited every single year, and he came every year that he was feeling up to it. He was always featured. And he ended up telling to over 1,200 people in a big tent as that festival continued to grow and grow. And it was just like you were sitting on his front porch. He was an amazing man, and I feel very blessed and honored to have spent a lot of time with him. And he was my mentor and teacher and friend of the heart for sure. Now, these next stories that I'm going to share with you, they come out of me talking to some of the old folks here in the mountains, and also from my imagination and from some true events. Now, I remember when I was just 5 years old, and my cousin Jenny Rose, she was 7 at the time, and we were living with our great Aunt Jenny. She took good care of us, and she loved to surprise us. One day she announced, "Time to get Christmas ready." And she told us we were going to have to stay at home, get our chores done. Now, the chores meant that we would feed the chickens, collect some eggs, and then we would haul wood from down at the barn. See, Uncle Jacob had come over to cut up some wood, but it was all down by the barn, and we needed it close to the house for the wood stove. That's what heated the whole house. So we needed it on the porch, and we also needed it because Christmas was coming. That meant we'd have a roaring fire in the fireplace because folks would be dropping by and all. So Aunt Jenny said, "Get your chores done." She bundled up, and let's see, I think my sound just went what that is. See if there's some amazing grace reference. And we'll try again. I wonder, do you think I undid anything else? Not sure yet. We have a backup plan. We have a mic on a stand if you have to. Make sure I'm still plugged in yet here. Yep. Yep. What do you think? Sounds working. I just stand up. Oh, I need a mic. I need a mic stand. I think there's one. Oh. We already planned in case this happens. Thank you much. I'm going to pull that way down and then pull this up. And then does this need to be turned on? Okay, so we'll wait till we get that going good. So how's that sound for everybody? All right. So Aunt Jenny, she had told us to get our chores done. And then she said she was going to head out. She kissed us each on the cheek. It's pretty cold outside, so she bundled up and down the road she went. Well, we were pretty sure she was going to Blaine Mulkey's Peace Good Mercantile. That was her favorite place to shop. And the thing we liked best about that was right up next to the cash register, he always kept a big bowl, and it was full of jawbreakers. Y'all remember those jawbreakers? And on the other side of the cash register were some of those big old red waxy lips. I don't know if they're still around much today, but I like them. So every once in a while, Aunt Jenny would get one or the other for us. So we were back home praying, hoping she would get us one, and we didn't care which one. We loved them both. Well, it didn't take too long before Aunt Jenny came home. We were so excited. She said, "Now, wait a minute. Just calm down. You don't know if I've gotten you anything or not. Just calm down, and we're going to have some supper." And she fixed the supper and such. And then after supper, she said, "All right." And she brought out those jawbreakers. We each got two. Our jaws were poking out. And then she said, "Because it's so close to Christmas, I reckon you'll get some of these red waxy lips too." So we popped them in. We looked like chipmunks with red lipstick. Aunt Jenny said, "That'll keep you youngins quiet." And she led us to a little alcove that she called her sewing room. We knew probably what was going to be happening was she was going to be making some patterns. Maybe we'd get something for Christmas. Well, she put blindfold on us, and we were standing. She said, "Now be still." We were so excited, though. "Be still." And then she started measuring. I could feel her hand up at my shoulder going all the way down to my wrist. And then I heard some cutting of paper. And then she was measuring down to our knees. And I was standing real straight. And just out of the corner of my eye, I caught a little glimpse of red calico. So I just knew we were going to be getting some dresses for Christmas. And sure enough, Christmas morning, there were two dresses lying there right under the tree. They fit perfect. And sitting right up on those dresses, she'd made us each an applehead doll with a dress to match. I think Christmas was the best time of the year.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. While shepherds get there watching, oh silent thoughts by night, hold throughout the heavens, they're shown a holy light. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. The shepherds fear and tremble when low above the earth ring out the angel chorus that hail the Savior's birth. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Down in a lonely manger, the humble born. And God sent us salvation, that blessed Christmas morn. Oh, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, that Jesus Christ is born. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, that Jesus Christ is born.
You know, in the mountains there was another tradition of when I was growing up of 12 days of Christmas. Now, this is back when Jenny Rose and I were still living with Great Aunt Jenny, and there were 12 different days that each evening we'd go to a different person's home. They'd be singing and dancing, fiddle playing and such, and having leftovers to eat. And this year that we had our red calico dresses, the last one was going to be at our house. We were so excited. We kept asking Aunt Jenny, how much longer? How much longer? She'd say, well, when it's time, it'll be time. And finally, it rolled about. We could hardly wait. Some of the neighbor women came over early to help Aunt Jenny get everything ready and such. And Jenny Rose and I, we were in our little red calico dresses, and we didn't want to cover them up with a coat or anything, even though it was really cold outside. But we heard some sleigh bells, and we went running out in the porch, and there was Mr. Owensby. His whole family was in the wagon there, and we greeted them. We had our little dolls that match, our Applehead dolls. We escorted them into the house, over to that roaring fire. We went over and warmed ourselves up, and then ran back out to escort the next group of people coming. Great Aunt Jenny got out her fiddle, and there was a couple of banjos and some guitars. They started playing, and people were dancing and so exciting and all. And I kept running out looking for the Nortons. Now, Lizzie, after Jenny Rose, Lizzie was my best friend, and she was coming that night, and I'd run back in and get warmed up again, maybe have a little gingerbread, or there was some hot apple cider and pumpkin pie, and then run back outside looking. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't believe what I saw. Santa Claus was walking down from the barn. He said, "Ho, ho, ho, little Sarah. I've got my reindeer in the barn, and I've come to visit." All I could think about was Sandy coming down that chimney with all that fire in there. So I ran into the kitchen, got a bucket of water, and I threw it on the fire. Great Aunt Jenny said, "Child, what in the world are you a-doing?" People were coughing. It was smoky. They were going outside, trying to get outside. And here come the Norton family. They thought the house was on fire. They went to the spring house, started filling buckets of water. Everybody that had run outside started throwing water on the house, and it took some doing to quiet everyone down. Kind of clean out the place, air it out from all that smoke, and mop up all the water. And it was then that I learned it was just Blaine Mulkey in a Santa suit. It wasn't really Santa. Well, the party continued, and that evening Aunt Jenny was putting us to bed, and Jenny Rose and I, we were still so excited. We were like two kittens in a field of catnip, and she said, "Now settle down, settle down." And she started in singing a little bit, and we must have drifted off to sleep. The last thing we heard was, that was some housewarming. And she sang, "Away in a Manger."
Oh, forever and lovely, I pray. Bless all the dear children in thy tender care, and fit us for heaven to live with you there.
You know, every Christmas since I can remember, Aunt Jenny would hand stitch us up a handkerchief as a gift. Said she sewed in all the memories from that year. My memories are intertwined with my cousin, Jenny Rose. She and I used to shadow each other every step of the way. Aunt Jenny would say, "Close as eggs in a basket." Now, we used to love to listen to the old folks talk. Aunt Jenny would be sitting on the front porch with some of her women friends, and we'd sneak around the back and kind of lean in. And Aunt Jenny, she'd catch sight of us and say, "My two little bunny rabbits. Now scoot on in here closer so you can hear every word." And she told us that we reminded her of Charlie Franklin. Charlie loved the old folks. Said he trusted the old ways a lot better than anything newfangled. He'd been born in England, and then his family traveled across the oceans and settled here in the mountains. He and Aunt Jenny grew up together. And sometimes Aunt Jenny would tell us about Charlie and his first Christmas away from home. Now, you don't often think about war and Christmas going together. But it was 1914, and over in Europe, the First Great War had started. Charlie, he was just 17 at the time, is busy looking for his first whiskers. His uncle had said, "Sign of a man, Charles, sign of a man." And that's when Charlie decided he was going to sign up for the war. He went to his mom and he said, "Mama, you can't talk me out of it. I'm Brit born and I'm going." And our Aunt Jenny, she was just 16 at the time. I think she was kind of sweet on him. She hand-stitched him up a handkerchief to take with him. Put his name right across the middle. Big blue letters. It said Charlie. And Charlie said he'd keep that with him the whole time he was gone. Well, Charlie, he walked down into Burnsville, caught a ride over to Bristol, and then he took a train all the way up to New York City, and he shipped off for the war. He found himself in the battlefield in France. He was in the trenches, dug out holes in the ground. It'd been raining a lot, and then it turned real cold. The staff sergeant had told him, "Keep their feet moving," so frostbite wouldn't set in. Charlie, he was with the French and the Brits. And not more than 100 yards across was the enemy, the Germans. No man's land, they called that in between. Now it was Christmas Eve, and Charlie, he was thinking about Christmas back home, wondering whether they'd put a stocking out for him. He usually got a few hickory nuts, an orange, a piece of peppermint. He could almost taste that peppermint in his mouth, that coolness drifting down his throat. Then he felt something cold next to him, and he realized it was his rifle, and he remembered where he was. He was scared. Every man there was scared, wondering whether the next bullet was meant for them. And out of that darkness and quietness, Charlie said, "I heard something."
God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Remember Christ our Saviour was born on Christmas Day.
Seemed so strange on the battlefield, someone singing. Then he heard something else. The tune, it was familiar, but the words, they were strange. And then he realized one of those Germans, Stille Nacht, one of those Germans was singing Silent Night. Well, it almost took his breath away. And then the French, they started singing it in French, and then the English, and then everyone, we were all singing it the same, but in different languages. Well, I almost couldn't, it was so much. And then I felt the guy next to me kind of tightened up, and he had his rifle pointed towards no man's land, so I just naturally picked up mine and pointed in the same direction, and I saw one of those Germans come walking across, and I thought that singing had it all been a trick, and I caught him in my sights, and I saw he was waving a truce flag, and he was still singing. And then another German got up, and another. And I remembered that sweet Jenny's handkerchief. I took it out and I tied it onto a stick, and I got up. My buddies, they were following me. And there we were in the middle of that no man's land, still singing that song. When we finished, all of a sudden a ball appeared and somebody knocked it. I was just watching, and a Brit ran by me and he said, "Just kick it, mate, just kick it." And I kicked it, and we were laughing, running up and down, trying to find that ball in the darkness. Someone yelled, "Can't see, light up the flares." And there were flares lit up all the way around, ringing that no man's land like it was a playing field. We must have been out there for hours. And a few of us gathered around one of those flares like it was a warm fire, exchanging souvenirs, chocolates and cigarettes. And a German guy took out a photograph, must have been his family, and I had one of my family. It was all of us standing on the porch back home, my mom and daddy and my brothers and sisters, and I pointed to me there and back, and it was like we were talking. But all too soon, first light of dawn come in the sky, and France was France again. The Germans, they started heading back to their trenches, and we started back for ours. And I caught sight of a young German soldier. He looked to be about my age. He grinned at me, and he grinned just like Danny Harmon back home. But I knew it wasn't Danny. We stood there looking at each other for a minute, and he turned and went, and I went back to the trench, picked up my rifle, and got ready for war again. But things had changed. Whenever we were looking down the sights of those guns, we were wondering what family we'd be killing into, who was on the other side of those sights. Things had changed. Well, Charlie Franklin, he came home after the war back to these mountains, and Aunt Jenny said they'd always go and visit the old folks because that's what Charlie liked best. And he'd tell them about his Christmas in the trenches. Then Aunt Jenny's voice would go down to a whisper. She'd tell us how it wasn't 18 months later that Charlie Franklin died, took sick with influenza and passed away. And Charlie's mama, she gave Aunt Jenny that handkerchief. And Aunt Jenny wears it in her sleeve, kind of tucked there every year. And she says, "Oh, girls, if only we could keep Christmas in our hearts all year long." And that's Charlie's truce flag. Thank you. Now, like I said, that comes some from my imagination and also from those true events. A dear friend of mine, amazing musician and songwriter named John McCutcheon, heard about that from someone that was clearing and cleaning off a stage where he was performing. That person happened to know about this happening and told John about it. John ended up writing a song called "Christmas in the Trenches," and that's what inspired me, and then I just set part of it here in the mountains. But in doing research for that story, I found out that everyone thought that war, nobody thought it was going to be a world war. They just thought it'd be over in 2 or 3 months. And when it wasn't, before the next Christmas time was coming up, there are memos, and I saw these memos on both sides, the enemy on both sides. There were memos that were sent out saying there would be no fraternizing on Christmas Eve because they were afraid if people got to know each other, they wouldn't be willing to fight. And I think that says a lot for all of us. Once we know someone's story, it's hard to hate them. And that, I feel, is another moment of amazing grace. Thank you very much.
Once you know someone's story, it's hard to hate them. This is the reality that gripped the hearts of those who came before us in faith. Individuals who would hear the story of Jesus, some of whom lived with Jesus, walked with Jesus, heard his stories, and then chose to share his story. Because it's hard to hate someone when you know their story, when you get close. You know, every year we share the stories of Christmas, stories that are often written down in books that we have, Matthew and Luke in particular. But these all started out as campfire stories. Individuals who would gather together and share the stories of this individual who came and didn't just shape their lives, but reshaped the world. And people like Mark, now Mark would be quick about the way he told his story of Jesus. But he would be so gripped by the stories of the prophets who came before that he would talk about a hope that we've lit and talked about for weeks. And he'd write those stories down and he'd share those stories with all who are around him. And there were other storytellers like Matthew. And Matthew was really interested in this king who would come and overturn all the ways that the world had understood rulers. He'd do it in the right way. He'd do it with peace and with justice. And he'd transform the world in that way. And Matthew would want to share that story time and time again. And others like that fine old Dr. Luke. Luke would set out to do all the research and gather the stories about this person that had changed his life and changed the life of so many. And he would pull those stories together, and he was really intrigued by some shepherds who heard about this story for the first time, and their hearts were filled with joy as that light was birthed into the world. Shepherds who no one had ever thought about, but he would share that story. And then there was John. And John had his head in the clouds somewhere. John wasn't like anybody else. He didn't tell stories that were on the ground. He told stories that were cosmic in nature. But he told stories about us as humanity living decade after decade and century after century living in darkness. And John reminded us that this individual who came, yes, he was earthy and he was grounded and he walked in the dirt of Palestine and he met with shepherds and he met with those who were on the margins, but he was the light that we all needed. He was the light that was to be birthed. And tonight we gather all of these stories together, and I want to invite my family to come and help me light these. We gather all of these lights together, and we remember, just as John promised it would happen. Come on, baby girl. We remember that the light has come. The light has come as John said it would come. The light has come As Luke had promised to bring us joy, the light has come, as Matthew said would bring a righteous king who would bring peace and justice into the world, and the light has come that we have hoped for all along. And that light comes to life in the Christ child. That light becomes the light of the world. And that light is now in each of us. You see, the invitation that comes from Christ is one that we would share the same story, that we would be the story sharers. It's not just left for these four old fellas, but it's for each one of us to bear this light, to carry this light, and to continue to witness to this light in the world. And as we close tonight, we give you the invitation to receive this light into your heart and to carry it forth into all the world, that that light may be seen in the midst of the darkness.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glory stream from heaven afar, heavenly hosts sing hallelujah. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born. Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth, Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy
I want to thank you again for being here and being a part of this special Christmas service. And I also want to extend our gratitude to Connie for bringing us into this season with such beauty and depth. Can you please give her a big round of applause if you can? Just pat that side. That's how you do it. We all learned something a little new. This is a brand new way of clapping. I got it. Again, if you'd like to participate in our annual Christmas Eve offering, no plates will be passed, but you can drop that in the receptacles. Connie is going to go ahead of us out into the lobby, and I encourage you to stop by, chat with her, hear more of her good stories as you get ready to leave this evening. Also, you can take these with you if you want, but if not, there's a place to drop those at the back. Just blow the candle out before you drop it in, if you don't mind. That will be fantastic as you go. And also, for those who are regular attenders here, we pray in the new year, taking 30-minute blocks of time each. And if you'd like to do that, Larry's in the back. There may be a few spots that you can fill in to sign up for 30 minutes of prayer as we pray in the new year. As you go tonight, I want to send you forth with a benediction that was written first by the Right Reverend Howard Thurman as he reflects on the Christmas story. And as you go forth carrying the light of Christ, allow this to be your prayer tonight. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, and when the shepherds are back with their flock, friends, that's when the work of Christmas really begins. So let it begin in your heart tonight. Let it begin as you seek and find the lost, as you walk forth to heal the broken, as you proceed out of this space to feed the hungry and to release the prisoner. Let the work of Christmas begin as you rebuild the nations, bring peace among all people, and as you make music in your hearts. Let the work of Christmas begin in your heart tonight and every day. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Have a wonderful night. Merry Christmas, all. Thank you so much.